Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
So here's a question to start the day. How do you manage your time? With the help of a physical calendar or a digital one? Is that?
Yes, this is my personal.
So where do you charge that?
No charging. It's a pen or pencil. Write everything down.
It's very.
And you pick one out that's nice, for this.
Reflects your personality.
Yes, for the year. So I'm happy with this
our
one.
Morning Light panel will weigh in on how technology has changed the way we organize the minutes of our day, except for you. It has not changed you at all. That's good.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. We first introduce you to North Star Initiative in May. The mission: end sex trafficking and empower survivors to reclaim their lives. A woman will share her personal journey and how North Star Initiative really helped her heal and grow in her relationship with God.
That's an audacious mission when you say end human trafficking.
It is.
Well, for centuries, human beings have been trying to figure out exactly how to spend the 24 hours each of us has been given. What's the right allotment for working and sleeping and eating and recreating? In the early centuries after Christ, it was the monastery bell which called the pace of life. In the industrial age, it was the factory whistle that ruled the worker's day. But the Wall Street Journal went in depth with college students in this age, the digital age. What's calling the shots in their life? How about Google Calendar? From sun up to sundown and all of the moments after, not a moment wasted.
Yeah, everything is dependent upon, your phone.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. Can't.
Oh, my
right?
goodness.
I'm heading to, yeah.
Right. But what if it crashes?
Right. Then you,
exactly.
You're making the case for
then
a
you
paper
don't even
and pen.
know. Exactly. Now, for the disorganized, the Google Calendar is the perfect tool. It's color-coded with program reminders synced to watches and phones, setting off constant alerts. Right.
Yes,
That's what you use.
I do not have one.
Oh.
Look at that. No Apple Watch.
Okay.
No.
Well, more than 70% of Americans say they rely on digital calendars to stay on task. Google, eCal, and other tools have profoundly changed the way we manage our 1,440 minutes of the day.
It's unbelievable. We have that many minutes in a day. But if every conscious and unconscious minute is being tracked, every calorie observed, and if the watch regulates our biometrics, are we at risk of racing against the clock with fewer minutes to change the tire of someone stopped along on the side of the road, or to listen deeply to the person in front of us or at the hospital, or those front porch visits, remember those? That spontaneous drop-by relic of another era? If the Good Samaritan had an Apple Watch counting his steps, would he have even stopped? We'll take this hard question to the Morning Light panel this morning. And that's a kind of a profound question, isn't it? Alex, what do you think? Would the Good Samaritan have stopped if he looked at his calendar and he's coming up on the man on the side of the road, and he has been beaten up and he's bloody? Because we have a lot of circumstances in our urban centers, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Erie, Harrisburg, where that exact scenario happens. But we are often driving by. What's going on?
Yeah, I think that having all of these tools, it pulls out these neurotic tendencies in you. I see it in myself. I see it in my own heart, that the more programmed my day is, the less margin that I have for people that may need that. And as someone in ministry, that can be a problem on multiple levels. I have to build in margin. I have to be available to be interrupted.
Yeah.
Right, and it can actively hamper building those trusting relationships. And there's this balance between wanting to redeem the time and not waste your time and manage it well, but then also allowing yourself to be able to be interrupted.
Wow. Michelle, you have been in a life, really, where corporate life, very structured, and ministry life today, perhaps not so much. Explain to me how you balance this need to, what Alex is saying, make good use, redeem the time. The days are evil. Clock is ticking. We need to get out to the fields, white into harvest, right? But at the same time, be there if someone you're talking to, your waitress, the person at the side of the road wants to engage. You're like, you feel the pull of your calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is something I think over decades I've wrestled with, to be honest. I tend to pack too much into a day, so I have journals full of God saying, be still and know that I'm God. And I've ended up putting things in pencil because of the different families that I've worked with, I would never know what a day looked like because I might have 10 appointments back to back, all scheduled perfectly in my calendar, only to have one after another cancel.
Right.
So I had to learn how to let go of some control in that arena and also trust him, because I'm also, people who know me know that I have a tendency to be rushing from one place to the next, often for the reason that what you just said. I might get sidetracked talking to somebody, and I'll end up engaging in that conversation, especially if I feel like God's like involved in this. And at the end of the day, I might still have like 20 things on my to-do list, which is too many, so we should debate that anyway. And he'll say, and I'll say, I didn't get anything done today. And God will say, hold on a second.
Yeah.
He said, no, you actually got done exactly what you needed to today, just not what you thought you needed to get done.
I think a lot of people who are watching right now are in agreement with that. There is a trend on social media right now of people showing their day. They wake up very early in the morning at 4 a.m. They have some scoops of this and that they put in, and then they go to the gym early. You know, and they document it. And part of it is, well, it's accountability because it keeps you accountable, but it also is to saying to the world, I'm very busy. And what does that communicate? What is the busyness of our lifestyle communicating to people?
I think our tendency, based on how the culture has moved things, is to be busy over being effective. And so I have to do a lot of things, as opposed to saying, like you said, there are certain things that I need to get accomplished today, and just filling my day with a whole bunch of busyness isn't necessarily the most effective way to use our time. And a lot of times it overwhelms us because we feel a need to kind of like a churning type of thing. I got to do more stuff, as opposed to, what about the quality of what I'm actually doing? If I spend time with a person who's really in need, I don't need to say, okay, your time's up, I have more stuff to do. What about the fact that I'm helping as a pastor? This person really needed me. This might be a very pivotal time in their life. And so me spending time with them, helping them through that process, is more important than me saying, I met 8 people today.
So this, in part, seems to be something of a Western idea or an American idea, because you're in missions. You go to India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all these other places, and the meal is not a 15-minute drop-in, is it?
No, and not even just those faraway places. I mean, Latin American cultures, there's a number of different cultures that are not quite as tight on time as we tend to be in North America. Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. But it's a reality. Some cultures value relationships more than just keeping the schedule. There's a guy, an author, Matthew Perman, who wrote What's Best Next, and he comments on this productivity system called Getting Things Done, and his critique of it is that, yes, it accounts for every task that you have to get done throughout the day, and it's a good system for keeping yourself organized, he says, but the problem is that it doesn't leave any room for, what about the things that don't get done? And there's something about, if you trust in the sovereignty of God, being willing to say, you know, at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., whenever your work day ends, to be able to say, whatever didn't get done is in the Lord's hands, and because he's a good God, I can trust him with it.
Wow, trusting God. I think of Mr. Rogers. You know, he would go his routine was in the morning before he would go on to the studio to record Mr. Rogers. It was engaging with a person who was disabled at the swimming pool, and every morning it was the same conversation every day with this, but he took time to do that. How do you know if you are in the checkout line, or if you just bumped somebody's door, and that could be a divine encounter, or that could be, I gotta go, everybody okay? I'm rushing to the meeting. How do you know when to lean in to that moment and breathe and allow the Spirit to work?
I think that in my life, I think that I used to be way more task-driven. And I had an end goal in mind, so I would just keep plowing through the day. But then as I've gotten older, and as I've had, like I said, I have millions of journals full of be still and know that I'm God, I started to try to be more mindful of just allowing God to direct my footsteps with people. And so I don't know if this is the best answer or not, but in my situation, I feel like those people kind of come across my path. And as I engage to say hello, and sometimes I'll be in a checkout and literally, no joke, my kids get on me all the time about this. It'll take 45 minutes for that person to check me out. And all I did was just kind of smile and say, hey, how are you doing? And that person felt seen.
To the chagrin of everyone behind you in line.
Yes, that's what they say. They're like, Mom, not again. Or I'll be going through a drive-through and I'll just say, hi, how's your day going? And then they start talking.
Yeah.
And I think
it doesn't take much, does it?
It doesn't take much, but I think that if we're not careful, we pass by people who, if we just smile, we're only saying hello, then God opens that door for them to start talking and for him to be able to move.
Okay. So we've gathered all of the millennials and the Gen Zers in a room, and we're going to tell them, yes, it's important to show up to work on time. It's important to make sure the bills get paid, comma, but surrendering your life to God looks like what when it comes to your time?
Well, I tell you, that's a great question. There was a time where I had dedicated 2 hours in the morning, early in the morning, for prayer, reading the word, worship, and I had it very set. And then there was times where I would have my phone close by, and I would say, I'm not going to answer the phone, but I need to see who it is, maybe if they called me, and then I'll call them back. And I remember in that moment that the Lord spoke to my heart and said, what difference does it make who's on the other line? You're talking to the creator of the universe, and you trust me, and I'm in control of all things. And so in that moment, I realized that my most important part was trusting God, spending time with him, and he works out my day for me. So there was never a time, and I got out of that prayer and meditation time, that I came out of it and the whole world had fallen apart. There's times people had called me 2 or 3 times, and by the time I got out of prayer and called them back, they go, oh, don't worry about it, we figured it out, right? So God was working the whole time, and as long as I trust him, I recognize I don't need to fill my calendar with a whole lot of busyness. I just need to fill my calendar with God, and he's going to direct my path, and everything's going to work out. And I don't have to be fearful. I don't have to be on that hamster wheel. I got to do more. I got to do more. Because at the end of the day, I just have to serve him and do what he's asked me to do.
You get the final 30 seconds today to give advice to all of those young people out there today who just woke up to a calendar alert and are nervous about the next calendar alert and are going to go to bed thinking about the next calendar alert.
Yeah. There's a difference between being a busybody and being actually busy. Being a busybody is all of this frenetic energy without the output, like you mentioned at the beginning. There's something of a status symbol that being busy does for us, and it shouldn't. That shouldn't be a mark of, look how important I am. We need to derive our importance and our significance from Christ, and if your identity and satisfaction are rooted in Christ, I'm not going to need to act busy to feel important. So start with your heart, and then from there, let your iPhone do the thing where it automatically goes into do not disturb when you get home, because that's what I do, and it works like a charm.
Well, hey, so we've run out of time. Friends, thank you. I think this was very helpful to a lot of people, including me.
Did we get enough stuff done?
Yes, indeed. Well, coming up on Morning Light, sex trafficking is widespread and one of the most underreported crimes. North Star Initiative is working hard to end this modern-day slavery right here in Pennsylvania. You'll learn how that organization is empowering survivors to reclaim their lives. And we'll be right back.
Welcome back. North Star Initiative is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting sex trafficking survivors. The goal is to provide women with resources to achieve independence. Joining me is the CEO, Melinda Clark. Melinda, thank you for being with us. Remind us again about North Star Initiative.
North Star is an anti-trafficking organization. We're working to end trafficking in our communities and to empower survivors to reclaim the lives that they are intended to enjoy as valued members of the community. Through healing their whole person, we have 2 shelters, one in Lancaster County, one in Berks County, and we work through awareness and education with the goal of making our communities trafficking-proof. We don't believe that trafficking is this inevitable crime that has to happen, and we believe that we can work to make communities that are trafficking proof.
So how large of a problem is this?
It is impossible to quantify because it's one of the most underreported crimes, especially when it affects young males, that men are least likely to report the trafficking and exploitation because it is so filled with shame. But we do know that it is happening in Pennsylvania by calls to the National Trafficking Hotline. Pennsylvania is in the top 5 of calls in to the trafficking hotline of concerns that trafficking is happening. And we know that it's happening along here because of our proximity to large cities, because of the highway systems, because this is a tourist destination, but we also know that we can prevent it and disrupt it. So it is something that happens in Pennsylvania, which is another misconception. Sometimes people think of this happening overseas or at the borders, and in fact, everyone we serve in our shelters is actually a victim of domestic sex trafficking. They're all American citizens who experience the exploitation in their own hometowns and sometimes in their own home.
So how can parents or grandparents say, hey, I think there's something not right? What are some of the signs?
With a young person, you're especially looking for, now we all know that teenagers are attached to their cell phones, but somebody who seems almost fearfully, obsessively connected to their cell phone, afraid to put it down, constantly having to respond. You're looking for young people who suddenly have very expensive purchases that they wouldn't be able to afford on their own, jewelry, a phone, shoes. We're looking for someone, they might be labeled as a problem teenager, somebody who's going through a hard time, they're rejecting their parents, they're out partying. It's worth leaning in to ask more questions, even though that's become a very difficult relationship. You're also looking for someone who is becoming increasingly isolated, that they're pulling away, and that is a tactic that a trafficker will use to say, your parents don't understand you, they don't respect you like I do, they don't treat you like an adult, I will treat you like an adult, you deserve better, you deserve adventure, come with me. And that's where we hear the terrible stories of a young person who goes missing from their home and they're found states away, days later, with someone who took them. So purchases, online obsessions with phones, and then this increasing isolation is preventable. We say, one of my colleagues always says that a connected child is an empowered child. The child who has people determined to stay connected, not to let them go, to ensure that they know, I love you, you can't disappoint me, I'm here for you, we're gonna work it out. Those are all protective factors that keep a young person from being vulnerable.
Now, North Star Initiative is located in central Pennsylvania. For our viewers, we have viewers all over. How can they get in touch with someone if they are not located here in this area?
You're always welcome to come to our website and then ask for connections. I would encourage you to Google anti-trafficking movement in my area or an organization in your area. There are several national affiliates and networks as well. You can go to shelteredalliance.org. That is a national network of anti-trafficking shelters like ours, and you'd be able to scroll through and see what's in your county and then find out how to get involved and to support them.
Okay, thank you so much for all of this information and also advice, Melinda.
Thank you for having me today.
To join the fight against sex trafficking or to get involved with this ministry, check out NorthStarInitiative.org. And coming up next on Morning Light, well, you just heard the mission of North Star Initiative. Now we will talk with a survivor. She will share her story and how the organization restored her hope and journey to faith. That's next. We hear the statistics of sex trafficking, but what really hits home are the stories of survival. I spoke with Emma, who went through North Star's program. She shares her personal journey to healing. Emma, thank you for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome.
Share your journey with us.
Okay, so just a little backstory. I am a survivor of sex trafficking. I was trafficked as a little girl by a family member, and then I repressed a lot of that and engaged in substance use that kind of blocked the memories, and then was re-victimized as an adult, and it triggered the memories of what happened when I was little, and I knew I needed to get help with it. And so I went to a women's shelter, and they quickly identified that what I described was trafficking. I wouldn't have described it that way at the time, but I've come to realize that that's what it was. And then they got me in touch with North Star.
So, how did you break out of this?
So the day that I left the town that I was in, where it was happening, I was trying to get sober. I'd been trying to get sober for a little while, and I recognized that I needed to get out. I didn't even really want to get sober, but I had my trafficker drop me off at an AA meeting. And from the AA meeting, I had a friend take me to their house. And then they got me in touch with the women's shelter. And I left that town that day.
I can't imagine going through something like this and then having the courage to step out of it. You mentioned North Star. Talk to us about how North Star Initiative helped you.
So, as I said, it was really dark and really desperate. I knew once the memories came in that I needed more help, that I was going to need help for my mental health, that I was going to need help reprocessing everything. The executive director at the women's shelter that I was at called several different places. This was actually in the middle of COVID. It was right as COVID started. So a lot of places were shut down. There wasn't travel. And the women at North Star, I did like a pre-assessment, and they identified that I was exactly the type of survivor they wanted to help. And so it was like a week later, they put me on a plane for the first time I got on a plane, and went to North Star. And I knew it was a year. At the time, it was a year program. I had no idea that they were going to transform everything in my life. They got me dental care. They got me a gynecologist for the first time in many years. They did. They got me into IOP for my substance use disorder. They gave me access to AA meetings, and I was able to work the steps with my sponsor. And they got me engaged they taught me how to knit. They opened me up to so many things that I never would have realized. And I wasn't planning on staying sober for the rest of my life. I was just wanted to get help. But they won me over for sobriety, and now I've been sober 5 years.
Congratulations. So how did your faith really help you through this journey?
So I will just say that I was a little resistant in the beginning. I was not a Christian, and you don't have to be a Christian, even though they are a Christ-centered program. But in the space and the silence and I learned to connect to a God of my understanding. And I recognized how God had been there with me through every step of the journey. And the women, volunteers, the women, the mental health professionals, the whole team at North Star they were the hands and feet of God. Absolutely. God was using them to heal me and to help me.
Well, certainly so glad that you have made it to the other side. What advice do you have for someone who is struggling with this?
Something that I hadn't mentioned yet that I meant to mention was that when I joined the program, I had lost custody of my 2 children. And the person that was trafficking me as an adult, one of the promises that he made was like, we're going to get custody of your kids back. And I think pimps make these kinds of promises all the time. And that was a barrier for me. I didn't want to leave my children, but it was exactly what I needed to do. And I think of all the promises that he made, and North Star actually made good on those promises. And so I would say if anyone is struggling, either because they're not a Christian or because they don't want to give up their phone, that's really hard in the beginning to give up your phone, or because your pimp is promising you that he's going to do things for you, just try it, because North Star will actually do those things. North Star will make good on all those promises, and I'm happy to report that I have been restored with my children, custody of my children, and yeah, it's just try it. Even if you think you don't like it, you think you won't like it, or you think you want to go back to the life, just give it a try. Try it for a month. I promise you'll love it.
So happy to hear that for you, Emma. Thank you so much for sharing this very emotional journey with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. Coming up tomorrow on Morning Light, the mission of the Tide is to make sure every ear hears the life-saving message of Jesus Christ. Plus, we will tell you how you can participate in a fundraiser that involves a cup of joe. And that's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts.
Thank you, Deborah. Well, when the crew of Apollo 15 returned to Earth on this very day 54 years ago, astronaut James Irwin was a changed man. The high-achieving, driven test pilot was a workaholic. His first marriage ended because of the drumbeat of his unrelenting ambition, but when he finally made it to space, walking on the surface of the moon in the utter stillness, he said he'd felt the power of God like he had never felt it before. So on his return to Earth, something profound hit him. He realized he was not a celebrity, but a servant, a reality which changed everything. He finally found the one thing bigger than going to the moon, peace with God, and he never stopped sharing that secret. He put it this way: Jesus walking on the earth is more important than any man walking on the moon. Take that with you today. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Kocman. Thanks for watching. Go check on your neighbors, and God willing, we'll see you again back here tomorrow morning.